of topics of questions that I had for this week was I saw this TikTok, and it was like I think it was some monk or something. He was talking about this concept of second death. I don't know if you've heard of that before. And he was
Mm.
basically saying where in a person's life, sometimes they actually die twice. Like one time would be like the actual physical death, right? Which is the final. But then sometimes people have like another death where it's like I guess like a spiritual kind of death, or it's like a death of the ego, sometimes some people call it. It's kind of like there's different names, it's kind of like a mysterious thing, but there's this sort of concept where you kind of have like this death and rebirth, and then you're able to like the second half of your life, your physical life that you have left, you maybe have another chance to do something. Um, not everybody, but that's sort of the idea, the concept of like second death. Um, do you know anything about that? Have you heard of that concept? Have you, you know,
Hmm.
any thoughts?
Yeah. A lot of times, I guess what I call what you're talking about is dark night of the soul. It's a lot of times that people, um, it just depends, yeah, not everybody has it, but it's usually it happens when you have like, for whatever reason, whether it's something that's happening outside of you or whether it's just, happening within you, it's usually both. Um, had such heavy trials and tribulations, I guess you could say. A lot of times that's how it happens in a crisis, where it just kind of like breaks you. Like it's this weird thing that it seems kind of paradoxical because it's like it's weird. Like it kind of shatters your reality. It kind of shatters your beliefs. That's kind of the death aspect. And you can't sugarcoat it. Like it is painful. It's like, oh my God, a lot of times it's like, I don't know. It's weird because it's like everything, it's all so much that it kind of like breaks you. But at the same time, it breaks you open and it actually ultimately liberates you, if that makes sense. Because if you see it through, it's like, it's actually a huge blessing because um, a lot of times, like when you have a moment like that, it's a call to action of like, you're not living how you like the full potential that you could be living at, and it could be a major thing like that, which you could call like an ego death or dark night of the soul, where it's like basically your personality, who you think you are, is like shattered, and it's brutal, but it's like it's kind of necessary because that's how you actually awaken to who you really are as like an eternal soul. So it's very liberating. You get like all that programming um, shatters,
So you're
but you don't
saying,
always
just to
necessarily.
clarify, like some kind of
Mhm.
like event, some kind of traumatic experience that kind of like snaps you out of it. It forces you to like break out of that previous perspective you had. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it can. I mean, it can happen in multiple ways too. Like it can happen in that way. It could happen, for example, sometimes people drink like ayahuasca, medicinal psychoactive brews. People sometimes have experiences like that um, in meditation, but also, and this is why, it's so beautiful to, by your own will, start exploring yourself and start exploring your own spirituality. Because if you do that, then you might actually be able to have a rebirth experience without having to go through something so brutal. It's kind of like, they say like listen to the whispers of your body, or you could even say whispers of your soul. Like you start listening to, oh yeah, like I don't feel good about that, or maybe that's not right for me, but I'm still doing it. Maybe I should make changes in my life and do the right thing. But if you just keep ignoring that and ignoring that and ignoring that, a lot of times that's when uh, you know, something will just blow up in your face, and you have to, face it. And you can either take the road of truly facing it, and that would be like the ego death. That would be, going on that journey within yourself. Or, some people might try to go even deeper, I guess, like deeper into the matrix, deeper into like escapism or like avoiding that reality because it's a lot, but it's like it's always worth it. It's always worth it. It's never as scary as it seems either. It's like, oh my God, I can't confront myself. But when you finally do, it's like it's not saying it's easy, but it's always worth it, because so much growth, like that's when you activate your power through facing your tribulations.
Do you have any experiences like I'm for somebody listening, is there like an actual story, like either personal or that maybe one of your clients or just maybe somewhere that you read or whatever that that where they basically went through that? Like what was something that happened, like actual account?
Um, I mean, I feel like I can only say I feel like one time it was really extreme, speaking from my experience from myself. I feel like we all have maybe a point that was the darkest, and I can, share that within my own life. But at the same time, like I often feel like I'm like dying and reborn like all the time. Like it's just again, it's kind of like that sine wave, that we were talking about with the seasons. It's like we have our own seasons, and it's like I feel that within myself sometimes. It's like old versions of me, or maybe old patterns or behaviors or things I used to do or people I used to hang out with. It's just all of a sudden it's like when you grow, it's like sometimes all that stuff like just doesn't resonate anymore. And it's like parts of you that kind of have to literally die and be reborn. But the biggest example for me, well, you know, I feel like I've had a few few events in my life like this, but um, like my first awakening, we talked about a little bit last time when I started kind of questioning, this reality and realizing a lot of the lies and corruption and gaslighting and manipulation. For me, that was kind of like a dying moment because I was a part of, being a part of all that. And then all of a sudden having this kind of like, it is kind of unexplainable. It's kind of like, it feels like a divine intervention because it's all of a sudden, it's like, it's just like, oh, like I can't live like that anymore. Like I can't go back to that. And again, it happens differently for everyone. And then there's another instance in my life where I was in a really like toxic relationship and I was like just like so gaslighted and confused and it was just like yeah, it was really really painful. Like I was really really depressed, like really really wanted to give up on life, like you know and so that's kind of like one of those dark nights of the soul moments where it's like I wanted to give up, but by grace, I was able to like pull myself up out of that, you know what I mean? And like be reborn. And because of that experience, that's why I am the way I am. Without these painful experiences that were so intense, that I absolutely hope I never have to do again. But I'm so thankful that they happened because they made me who I am. Like there's no way I would have like the wisdom and the knowledge I have now if not for those moments.
So I guess the question is like sometimes people go through stuff and then they just don't come out, right? It's just too much, right? So how did you like how was it how did what was the story where how did you make it like on the other side? Like how did you not just end up in a worse place, right? Like what was it, maybe you might have to go into more specifics. It's up to you, you want to change topics, but like, how do you what specifically happened? Like how
Mm-hmm.
did you specifically um because like you could just like sometimes people like leave a relationship, a toxic relationship, but then they just go back in another relationship, right? That's toxic. So what kind of like how were you reborn, I guess? How
Mm-hmm.
did you change, you know, after the
Mm-hmm.
experience?
Yeah, I can get more specific, but the first thing I want to say too, because it's so simple, it really is just like have it so simple, is like following, and I this is just what I want to call it right now, is following the living God within. It's like, and you can call it God, you can call it the Holy Spirit, your higher self, like your heart, like who you truly are, the higher power of love, consciousness within you. For me, that's always been my guiding light is to follow that no matter what. So it's like, even if it's hard, or like, because I feel like that is so simple, it's like that will always guide you to where you need to go. And you really have to get close with that part of yourself and have a relationship with that part of yourself, because that's the part of yourself that will never let you down or lead you astray. It's will in a way carry you. um People who get stuck in it, it's like they're getting kind of stuck in, it's almost like they're getting stuck in like the matrix. Like they're kind of, a lot of times they don't have that strong connection within themselves, which you do have to cultivate and practice. But it's like, it should be, in my opinion, your first priority over anything, because everything is within you. Like all of your power, like everything you need, like God is literally within you. So it's like you have to learn how to cultivate that, because that's going to bless you throughout your whole entire life. That's the first thing. And that'll keep you from getting pulled into like these external things of like getting back into that relationship or getting back into those old patterns. But so that's really what happened to me. So when I was able to get out of that situation, and I'm not trying to be vague, it's such a long convoluted story that I don't even know where to go with it. But like, ultimately I remember it took me a long time. I mean, I was in it for, I mean, about a year. I guess that's not that long, but for me, that was a long time. And it just kind of like finally hit me like what was going on, that I was like being gaslighted and that I was basically living a lie. Like, I don't know, that part just, um, it just kind of hit me, I feel like at the right time. And I realized I realized early on in my life that you can't ignore your soul. Like if you ignore your soul, you're gonna get yourself into shit every single time. Like no matter how hard it is, you have to just honor and recognize what your soul is guiding you towards. Because literally, because I've just seen it, I've seen it with my parents. I've seen it so many times in my life where people just try to ride the fence and ignore reality, and it's just like smack down. That was a part of my childhood I saw my parents go through. So I'm just, for me, I really don't mess around with that when I realize like I'm doing something that's like not healthy.
No, that's an
Because
interesting point,
even if
actually.
it's hard.
Yeah. That made me actually, this whole question made me think of like the concept people say soulless, um, like they have no soul. And I guess like somebody who's soulless would be like what you're saying is somebody who does not have that inner voice, I guess, or they just stamp it out. Like that's, that's like, that would be like your soul trying to be like, hey, what's up? Like you should do this. But then
Yeah.
if somebody's like, they just ignore it, then they're just like a vessel. They're like a body, I guess. I guess that's kind of like the concept of two deaths that made me think of. It was like yeah, like there could be a situation where you're just a soulless, empty shell of a person. So I get yeah, and then sometimes that happens. Like that could be like your first death. Like for example, like as a child, you have like this super nice, beautiful outlook on life, but then like over time, maybe people beat it out of you, so then you become like this robot. So then you become soulless. So then you need this like you need to almost to like that old personality has to like die, and then you need to be like you need like a new person has to come out of it, like a new soul. I don't know, like man, it sounds kind of crazy, but I guess you know what like am I making sense here?
Yeah, it's an ancient archetype. It's the phoenix, it's
Hmm.
the dying and being reborn from your own ashes. And it's intense and it's painful, but it's the most worthwhile thing you can do, honestly, because you really do emerge from your own ashes as long as you keep following that love like within you, like which you never could be separate from it unless you choose to ignore it, really,
Hmm.
once you know.
This actually that makes me think of when I went to college. Like I was studying, I didn't know what to study. Like I kind of just went to college. Parents were like, just go, you'll figure it out. I'm like, all right. So I was studying like music actually. I was studying like music production because I was really into like recording stuff. Like I wanted to like record people like in studios and stuff. But then there came a point when I like worked a job like over the summer and like worked in the studio and I was just like, okay, this sounds cool, but like actually all day I'm just like in a dark room, like like just like I don't see the sun, I'm just recording music in like an isolated chamber. And so then I had like this, I was like, I can't do this. And then I just switched my major. So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes,
Hmm.
I guess sometimes, you got to just analyze your life and make some choices if you feel like things aren't going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of, that's such an important point because that's how you start to get in touch with like people call it like your emotional guidance system. It's like living for what genuinely makes you feel happy and fulfilled, you know what I mean? And like more of that, less stuff that makes you feel like a robot and soulless and unfulfilled, like more stuff that puts you on fire. That's why we're here.
Yeah.